Good morning, philosophers. Hope you're well today. We are beginning letter 55. I'm pretty sure that's accurate now. And no, I'm not going to go back and rename all the old videos. They're just going to be left there as evidence of my fallibility. All right, letter 55. I've just this moment returned from a ride in my sedan chair, feeling as tired as if I'd walked the whole distance instead of being seated all the way. Even to be carried for any length of time is hard work, and all the more so, I dare say, because it is unnatural, nature having given us legs with which to do our own walking, just as she gave us eyes with which to do our own seeing. Soft living imposes on us the penalty of debility. We cease to be able to do the things we've long been grudging about doing. However, I was needing to give my body a shaking up, either to dislodge some phlegm, perhaps, that had collected in my throat, or to have some thickness due to one cause or another in my actual breathing reduced by the motion, which I've noticed before has done me some good. So I deliberately continued the ride for quite a long way, with the beach itself tempting me onwards. It sweeps round between Cumae and Servilius Vitia's country house. My goodness. It sweeps round between Cumae and Servilius Vitia's country house in a sort of narrow causeway with the sea on one side and a lagoon on the other. A recent storm had left it firm, for, as you know, a fast-running heavy surf makes a beach flat and smooth, while a longish period of calm weather leads to a disintegration of this surface, with the disappearance of the moisture that binds the particles of sand together. I had started looking around me in my usual way to see whether I could find anything I could turn to good account, when my eyes turned to the house which had once belonged to Vatier. Vatia? Let's go with Vatia. This was the place where Vatia passed the latter part of his life. A wealthy man who had held the office of praetor, but was famed for nothing but his life of retirement, and considered a fortunate man on that ground alone. For whenever a man was ruined through being a friend of Asinius Gallus, or an enemy of Sejanus, or devoted to Sejanus, for it came to be as dangerous to have been a follower of his as it was to cross him, people used to exclaim, "Vatia, you're the only person who knows how to live." What in fact he knew was how to hide rather than how to live, and there is a lot of difference between your life being a retiring one and its being a spineless one. I never used to pass this house while Vatia was alive without saying, "Here lieth Vatia." But philosophy, my dear Lucilius, is such a holy thing and inspires so much respect that even something that resembles it has a specious appeal. Let a man retire, and the common crowd will think of him as leading a life apart, free of all cares, self-contented, living for himself, when in fact not one of these blessings can be won by anyone other than the philosopher. He alone knows the fundamental thing, how to live. The person who has run away from the world and his fellow men, whose exile is due to the unsuccessful outcome of his own desires, who is unable to endure the sight of others more fortunate, who has taken to some place of hiding in his alarm like a timid, inert animal. He is not living for himself, but for his belly, and his sleep and his passions, in utter degradation. In other words, the fact that a person is living for nobody does not automatically mean that he is living for himself. Still, a persevering steadfastness of purpose counts for a lot, so that even inertia, if stubbornly maintained, may carry a certain weight. I can't give you any accurate information about the house itself. I only know the front of it and the parts in view, the parts that it displays even to passers-by. There are 2 artificial grottos, considerable feats of engineering, each as big as the most spacious hall, one of them not letting in the sun at all, the other retaining it right up until its setting. There is a grove of plane trees through the middle of which runs a stream flowing alternately, like a tide race, into the sea and into the Acherusian lake. A stream capable of supporting a stock of fish even if constantly exploited, It is left alone, though, when the sea is open. Only when bad weather gives the fishermen a holiday do they lay hands on this ready supply. But the most advantageous feature of the house is that it has B-A-I-A-E. Bye. There are too many vowels in a row to know how to pronounce that. B-A-I-A-E. But the most advantageous feature of the house is that it has bay next door. It enjoys all the amenities of that resort and is free from its disadvantages. Why are we talking about okay. I can speak for those attractions from personal knowledge, and I'm quite prepared to believe, too, that it is an all-the-year-round house, since it lies in the path of the western breeze, catching it to such an extent as to exclude by from the benefit of it. Vatia seems to have been no fool in choosing this place as the one in which he would spend his retirement, sluggish and senile as retirement had become. The place one's in, though, doesn't make any contribution to peace of mind. It's the spirit that makes everything agreeable to oneself. I've seen for myself people sunk in gloom in cheerful and delightful country houses, and people in completely secluded surroundings who looked as if they were run off their feet. So, there's no reason why you should feel that you're not as much at rest in your mind as you might be just because you're not here in Campania. Why aren't you, for that matter? Transmit your thoughts all the way here. There's nothing to stop you enjoying the company of absent friends as often as you like, too, and for as long as you like. This pleasure in their company, and there's no greater pleasure, is one we enjoy the more when we're absent from one another. For having our friends present makes us spoilt. As a result of our talking and walking and sitting together every now and then, on being separated, we haven't a thought for those we've just been seeing. One good reason, too, why we should endure the absence patiently is the fact that every one of us is absent to a great extent from his friends even when they are around. Count up in this connection first the nights spent away from one another, then the different engagements that keep each one busy, then the time passed in the privacy of one's study, and in the trips into the country. And you'll see that periods abroad don't deprive us of so very much. Possession of a friend should be with the spirit. The spirit's never absent. It see daily whoever it likes. So share with me my studies, my meals, my walks. Life would be restricted indeed if there were any barrier to our imaginations. I see you, my dear Lucilius. I hear you at this very moment. I feel so very much with you that I wonder whether I shouldn't start writing you notes rather than letters. Okay. The only useful thing I got out of that entire chapter was the place one's in shouldn't determine your peace of mind. Letter 56. I cannot for the life of me see that quiet is as necessary to a person who has shut himself away to do some studying as it is usually thought to be. Here am I with a babble of noise going on all about me. I have lodgings right over a public bathhouse. Now imagine to yourself every kind of sound that you can get you hating your ears. Now imagine to yourself every kind of sound that can get you hating your ears. When the strenuous types are doing their exercises, swinging weight-laden hands about, I hear the grunting as they toil away, or go through the motions of toiling away. At them, and the hissings and strident gasps every time they expel their pent-up breath. When my attention turns to a less active fellow who is contenting himself with an ordinary, inexpensive massage, I hear the smack of a hand pummeling his shoulders, the sound varying according as it comes down, flat or cupped. But if on top of this some ball player comes along and starts shouting out the score, one's done for. Now add someone starting up a brawl, and someone else caught thieving, and the fellow who likes the sound of his voice in the bath, and the people who leap into the pool with a tremendous splash. Going beyond from those sounds, which are, if nothing else natural, call to mind the hair remover, repeatedly giving vent to his shrill and penetrating cry the better to advertise his presence, never silent unless it be while he is plucking someone's armpits and making the client yell for him. What is happening? Then, think of the various cries of the man selling drinks, and the one selling sausages, and the other selling pastries, and all the ones hawking for the catering shops, each publicizing his wares with a distinctive cry of his own. You must be made of iron, you may say, or else hard of hearing, if your mind is unaffected by all this babble of discordant noises around you. When continual good morning greetings were enough to finish off the Stoic Chrysippus. But I swear, I no more notice all this roar of noise than I do the sound of waves or falling water, even if I am here told the story of a people on the Nile who moved their capital solely because they could not stand the thundering of a cataract. Voices, I think, are more inclined to distract one than general noise. Noise merely fills one's ears, battering away at them, while voices actually catch one's attention. Among the things which create a racket all around me without distracting me at all, I include the carriages hurrying by in the street, the carpenter who works in the same block, a man in the neighborhood who saws, and this fellow turning horns and flutes at the trickling fountain and emitting blasts instead of music. I still find an intermittent noise more irritating than a continuous one, but by now I have so steeled myself against all these things that I can even put up with a coxswain's strident tones as he gives his oarsmen the rhythm. For I force my mind to become self-absorbed and not let outside things distract it. There can be absolute bedlam without, so long as there is no commotion within, so long as fear and desire are not at loggerheads, so long as meanness and extravagance are not at odds and harassing each other. For what is the good of having silence throughout the neighborhood if one's emotions are in turmoil? Quote, "The peaceful stillness of the night had lulled the world to rest." And the footnote is, that was a fragment of Vero Atacinus's translation from the Greek of Apollonius's Argonautica. All right. This is incorrect. There is no such thing as peaceful stillness, except where reason has lulled it to rest. Night does not remove our worries, it brings them to the surface. All it gives us is a change of anxieties. For even when people are asleep, they have dreams as troubled as their days. The only true serenity is the one which represents the free development of a sound mind. Look at the man whose quest for sleep demands absolute quiet from his spacious house. To prevent any sound disturbing his ears, every one of his host of slaves preserves total silence, and those who come anywhere near him walk on tiptoe. Naturally enough, he tosses from side to side, trying to catch some fitful sleep in between the spells of fretting, and complains of having heard sounds when he never heard them at all. And what do you suppose is the reason? His mind is in a ferment. It is this which needs to be set at peace. Here is the mutiny that needs to be suppressed. The fact that the body is lying down is no reason for supposing that the mind is at peace. Rest is sometimes far from restful. Hence our need to be stimulated into general activity and kept occupied and busy with pursuits of the right nature whenever we are victims of the sort of idleness that wearies of itself. When great military commanders notice indiscipline among their men, they suppress it by giving them some work to do, mounting expeditions to keep them actively employed. People who are really busy never have enough time to become skittish. And there's nothing so certain as the fact that the harmful consequences of inactivity are dissipated by activity. We commonly give the impression that the reasons for our having gone into political retirement are our disgust with public life and our dissatisfaction with some uncongenial and unrewarding post. Yet every now and then ambition rears its head again in the retreat into which we were really driven by our apprehensions and our waning interest. For our ambition did not cease because it had been rooted out, but merely because it had tired, or become piqued perhaps at its lack of success. I would say the same about extravagant living. which appears on occasion to have left one and then, when one has declared for the simple life, places temptation in the way. In the middle of one's program of frugality, it sets out after pleasures which one had discarded, but not condemned. It is pursuit of them indeed being all the more ardent the less one is aware of it. For when they are out in the open, vices invariably take a more moderate form. Diseases too are on the way towards being cured when once they have broken out instead of being latent, and made their presence felt. So it is with the love of money, the love of power, and the other maladies that affect the minds of men. You may be sure that it is when they abate and give every appearance of being cured that they are at their most dangerous. We give the impression of being in retirement and are nothing of the kind. For if we are genuine in this, if we have sounded the retreat and really turned away from the surface show, then, as I was saying a little while ago, nothing will distract us. Men and birds together in full chorus will never break into our thinking when that thinking is good and has at last come to be of a sure and steady character. The temperament that starts at the sound of a voice or chance noises in general is an unstable one and one that has yet to attain inward detachment. It has an element of uneasiness in it, and an element of the rooted fear that makes a man prey to anxiety, as in the description given by our Virgil. Quote, "And I, who formerly would never flinch at flying spears or serried ranks of Greeks, am now alarmed by every breeze and roused by every sound to nervousness, in fear, for this companion and this load alike." The footnote for that quote is Aeneid 2. Aeneas is describing his feelings as he leads his son and carries his father out of Troy while the city is being sacked. The earlier character here is the wise man who knows no fear at the hurtling of missiles or the clash of weapons against weapons in the close-packed ranks, or the thunderous noise of a city in destruction. The other latter one has everything to learn. Fearing for his belongings, he pales at every noise. A single cry, whatever it is, prostrates him, being immediately taken for the yelling of the enemy. The slightest movement frightens him out of his life. His baggage makes him a coward. Pick out any one of your successful men with all they trail or carry about with them, and you will have a picture of the man in fear for this companion and this load. You may be sure, then, that you are at last lulled to rest when noise never reaches you and when voices never shake you out of yourself, whether they be menacing or inviting or just a meaningless hubbub of empty sound all around you. This is all very well, you may say, but isn't it sometimes a lot simpler just to keep away from all the din? I concede that, and in fact it is the reason why I shall shortly be moving elsewhere. What I wanted was to give myself a test and some practice. Why should I need to suffer the torture any longer than I want to when Ulysses found so easy a remedy for his companions, even against the sirens? All right. Ran a little long today, but that's fine. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there today, guys. We're running a little bit behind. So I want you guys to have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.